UAE is mapping an environmentally responsible future for itself, and adapting rapidly to this change is Terraco, a company with over 35 years of experience in exterior insulation finishing systems or EIFS. Today, I'm joined by Eric Widstrom, CEO of the company, to tell me more about the system, its sustainability and safety impact, and much more. Good morning, Eric. Thanks very much for joining me on the CW Expert interview today. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Well, so Eric, let's start with the basics. What is EIFS and how popular is it globally?
So EIFS stands for External Insulation and Finish Systems, and basically this is a globally recognized exterior facade insulation system, which you could term as a blanket, effectively, a thermally efficient blanket that encapsulates the exterior buildings. And it consists of various different layers and components. So you'd have adhesives, various types of insulation boards, different types of accessories and mesh, and then base coats and a finish coat on top. And this forms a composite. It goes around the exterior of the building, and by virtue of being installed on the outside, it basically eliminates thermal bridging through construction elements, giving great thermal efficiency and great long-term performance. These systems are used all over the world, and you'll have hundreds of millions of square meters that are installed every year.
Eric, can you comment on just how the system contributes towards sustainable construction and green buildings?
Yeah, so I think it's important to set the scene here. 40% of carbon emissions globally come from buildings. Yeah? So 3/4 of that comes from operating buildings, so heating, cooling, electrical consumption within buildings, and about 1/4 comes from actually the embodied carbon in buildings themselves. And tackling that is really important for policymakers as they set out to meet their commitments under the Paris Agreement. Yeah? So anything that can contribute positively to that is obviously critical. What we have with EIFS is a system that contributes to the three pillars, if you will, of sustainability. So traditionally, you would say that you have to meet a sustainable, should we say, development or construction, you should be able to meet the 3 Ps, so people, planet, and profit, effectively. And EIFS can do all 3 of these things. It obviously has a very significant positive contribution to reducing a building's environmental footprint. You can reduce a building's consumption by 50% by installing with EIFS versus one that is uninsulated. Yeah? So that, I think, speaks for itself, that 50% is a very compelling figure. On top of that, if you look at the people component, you have a greatly increased internal comfort that comes for the occupants in a building. You have less fluctuation in temperature within a building during the day. So, you'll have flattened temperature curves during the course of a day, during the course of seasons, during the course of a year, and also less sound transmission. So you'll have better or more comfortable, say, in internal environments from a sound insulation point of view. And also you're able to manage dew points and humidity within a building by implementing these systems. Yeah? So the people component is also greatly catered to by EIFS. And the final part, I think, speaks for itself. If you're able to reduce energy consumption by 50%, then you can reduce energy cost by 50%. Yeah? So that's, although there's an upfront cost to installing an insulation system like EIFS, it pays for itself many times over the course of the building. And then also you're able to install smaller capacity or lower capacity heating or cooling systems, obviously, which again means lower cost and greater profits for whoever is operating or owning the building. And I think a point that's worth mentioning is the ability of EIFS to be retrofitted onto old buildings. So, 2/3 of the buildings that are built today will still be standing in 2040. This is the expectation in terms of square footage, basically. Yeah? So making sure that those buildings are future-proofed is obviously critical. You don't want to be in a situation where you have an uninsulated building in 20 years' time that's unable to meet the energy efficiency criteria of the day. So with the EIFS, you can future-proof old buildings and keep them operating for longer obviously that's a financial benefit, if you will. If we look at our company in brief, what we do from a sustainability point of view, we have, I suppose we do what everybody else does these days. So we reduce, consumption of resources. We recycle wherever possible. But I think what sets us apart is that we only produce water-based products. So we don't do any solvent-based products. We've never done that in the 40-year history of the company. So the environmental, should we say, awareness and responsibility is ingrained in Terraco's culture. We've had that from the very start. But we've been in the region since the early 80s. We've been operating in the UAE since the early 90s. So, I mean, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of projects that we've been involved with. Many other landmark developments in the UAE in general and the broader region. And yeah, I mean, with our commitment to environmental responsibility and green building, I mean, having that sustainability angle has been critical from the start.
Right. And now with safety, of course, gaining so much importance, what would you say are the considerations for EIFS when we talk of facade fire safety?
Yeah, so this is a critical question. It's been on everyone's mind, especially over the last few years in view of some of the global incidents that we've seen. And while I don't think any of those have involved EIFS, I mean, what's important is obviously that you're dealing with a certified manufacturer that knows what they're doing, that's reputable, that can make sure that the specified system is fit for purpose and that it's suitable for that specific installation that you have in mind. We work with various different types of insulation media that we can incorporate into EIFS. So we work with everything from mineral wool, which is obviously incombustible, and we have different types of other insulation media, fire-retardant XPS, fire-retardant EPS, phenolic. We constantly evaluate what the options are, and then we can design a performance profile, not only from a thermal efficiency point of view, but also from a fire safety point of view, depending on what the client requirements are. So in Europe, I mean, you would typically use fire-retardant EPS maybe for low-rise. As you move into high-rise or mid-rise, you would put in fire breaks, and then as you move into high-rise territory, you would make sure that you have something that would be A1, A2 sort of certified, classified, so that it's basically incombustible and meets very high fire safety performance point.
Could you go into why it's so important to use single-source certified system suppliers for EIFS and facade systems?
Yeah, so I mean, it ties in with what I mentioned earlier on fire safety, but I think what's really important here is to have a single entity, if you will, that's responsible for the system. So, I mean, if you are dealing with a certified supplier, that supplier is responsible for going through all the components, ensuring all of the different parts that form the whole have been tested, certified, audited by third parties, and that the system that's being installed on site is safe and fit for purpose. Yeah? If you work with should we say, cobbled together system, you're buying in components from different areas or different suppliers and making your own system, then there's no testing to support how that system will perform as a whole. You know? So it's really critical from a fire safety point of view, but also, I mean, from a performance profile point of view. So if you're building a high-rise building, I'm pretty sure you want to know how that system will handle wind load resistance, for example. You don't want to install something 20 floors up that's going to get ripped off in the first strong wind that comes along. Also impact resistance, weatherability, so on and so forth, the list goes on. So to work with certified suppliers is critical in order to ensure that these systems perform over the long term. And I mean, effectively, the intention is that an EIFS system should stand the life cycle of the building itself, with some maintenance and whatnot, obviously, over that course of time. But we design these systems to last the life of the building, and that's only possible to achieve if you've done that level of testing and certification.
Right. Now, Eric, my last question to you is two-part. First, let's talk about just how this system, EIFS, has evolved over the years. And second, how is Terraco providing next-generation products to impact this industry? Yeah,
it's an interesting story, actually. Yeah, so EIFS was developed, it wasn't called EIFS at that point in time, but it was developed in the aftermath of World War II in Europe. So as you can imagine, there was a huge deficit of housing. On top of that, there was an energy crisis. I mean, you had the supply chain for energy in terms of oil, heating oil, coal, whatever have you, was decimated in large parts of Western Europe. And you were in a situation where you had to build a large amount of housing quickly, and that it was thermally efficient because of the reduced availability of energy sources, basically. And that's when EIFS sort of was developed as one of the solutions to deal with those challenges. From there, it migrated across to North America, became very popular there, and then from there spread to different parts of the world. So, I mean, the same system, we call it EIFS here, every EIFS in the in the Gulf and in this region, and that's the same name that's used in North America, but the same system is sold in Europe today called ETICS, and in the UK called EWI. So it's the same system, but with different names. It's come here to this region now about 15, 20 years ago. I mean, we spearheaded and we're the first to introduce the system here in this region. And today we're market leading in the UAE, if not the broader region.
Right. Wow.
Your second part of the question as well. So what do we plan for the future and what do we bring to the table? I think what we focus a lot of attention on is to make sure that our products are fine-tuned for this region. Yeah? We've been here for many years. We know how this climate works. It's challenging, it's difficult, but we make sure that our products really are tested, adjusted, fine-tuned to perform in these difficult climatic conditions. And that's a continuous process that we do every day, every year. Yeah? We consistently and continuously evaluate new insulation media. So I mentioned some of them before, and we're always looking at new ones so that we can make sure that we can offer our customers the very cutting edge in terms of insulation and thermal efficiency technology. Yeah? But where we really focus our attention is on the finishes. So we want to be able to offer our customers a very broad range of certified finishes. We have everything from your general acrylic finishes to elastomerics, silicone finishes, stone imitation finishes, metallic finishes, and that's just on the ready-mix side. Then you have all the cementitious finishes and so on and so forth. So we really, I think, focus a lot of attention there, and that's what we will be driving going forward as well.
Wonderful. The system has, of course, evolved remarkably over the years, and I think here's looking at a very exciting future as well for Terraco.
Indeed. I know.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Thanks very much for joining me today. It was a pleasure having you.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
While that was all for this episode, we shall be back soon with another guest and another interesting topic. Until then, you know the drill. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and watch this space for more. Thank you for watching.